podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective.
Welcome to Behavior Health Today. I'm your host, Dr. Graham Taylor. And today we're going to be concluding our conversation on effective leadership with my guest, Josh Taylor. In our last episode, we were able to get a foundation of what effective leadership is and some of the meaningful ways we define the role of being a leader. We'll resume our conversation today with a free association naming exercise that I posed to Josh. I want to do another exercise with you, Josh, and I think this is another exercise that those listening can also do for themselves. Again, trying to get some takeaways in our time today. As I know it can be helpful in our growth and in being intentional about our leadership, to think about those who have been leaders and mentors in our lives that have left kind of a good, almost indelible mark. So look, what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you just to free associate. You don't know who I'm going to be asking you yet. I gave you some notes regarding today, but I didn't give you these names. So hope you got your seat back and your tray table and the full and upright position. All right. So let me have you free associate. Okay. And I'm going to have you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind as I rattle off these names of people that I know that have been influential in your life.
Okay.
So the first person is you mentioned him earlier, the John Wooden of volleyball, the once USA Olympic volleyball coach and coach of your Pepperdine Waves volleyball team, Marv Dunphy.
Yeah. I think I don't like the idea of wanting to be someone. I think that gets in the way of what we were talking about when it comes to being authentic. I'll never be Marv. I just want to be me. But if I can be a little bit like him, I'd be pretty happy about that, because he just did some things that made each player feel so empowered in life as well as sport. And the amount of lessons that I learned from him that at times maybe were quirky were just incredible. And I think I'll share one real quick besides the getting better or getting worse one. I remember one day he came up to me after practice and he said, "Josh, I think you're getting better. You're doing some good things." I said, "Thanks, coach. I'm trying." And he kind of freaks out for a moment. He goes, "Whoa." And he runs over to the whiteboard and he grabs a dry erase marker and he comes back and holds it out in his hand. And he says, "Josh, try and take this out of my hand." And I'm like, okay, this guy's trying to Mr. Miyagi me. So I'm going to snatch it out really quick. So I did. I snatched it in his hand really, really quick. And he didn't flinch. And I'm like, what is he trying to teach me here? And he says, no, give it back. You took it out of my hand. He puts it back in his hand and he says, "Try to take it out of my hand." And I thought for a moment, I'm like, "Coach, I don't know what you're trying to get me to do here." And he said, "Josh, there is no try. You either do it or you don't. That doesn't mean you're absolutely going to be successful all the time, but there is no try. You either do it or you don't. And right now you're doing it." And really he's one of those guys that is in multiple Hall of Fames, Olympic gold medalist, 4-time national champion, head coach at the collegiate level, all-time idol right there when it comes to coaching.
Absolutely. What a great guy. He's been a good person in your life, I know. And I know you're still in contact with him as a kind of a mentor.
I am, yeah.
That's lucky. Really cool. Here's your second one. Brad Keller, the coach of one of the coaches at UCLA.
Man, what a stud. He just got hired as the head coach of the women's volleyball program at USC. So I'm so happy for him. And I think a big thing with Brad, he was an assistant coach when I was with the junior national team. That was when I was still in high school. And to be honest with you, I was still kind of trying to find myself a little bit as a player and a person. And at times I was a little awkward, but he was so kind to me all the time. And he allowed me to be who I was, even though I was still trying to figure that out. And at the same time held me to a really high standard. And even now we've got a great relationship. We were texting each other a couple of days ago when they played their first matches. And, he has been incredible in leading me and talking to me and giving me advice about how to lead a program. And just some of the things that he shared with me have been phenomenal. And one of the biggest things is he said, "What do you believe in when it comes to being a coach? What do you believe in?" And I kind of sat there for a moment and I'm like, "I guess I believe in a lot of things." And he says, "Would your assistant coaches say the same thing if I asked them the same question?
Uh-huh.
Would the kid on your current team who dislikes you the most say the same thing when it comes to being a part of this program?" I said, "Man, probably not." He said, "You got to define what it means to be a part of Missouri volleyball. And that comes down to the way you think, the way you act, the way you live, the way you communicate. And you got to define that so everyone knows what the expectation is at all times. And anytime there's ambiguity around what your role is, that's when things get messy." And, I've known Brad for a long time and he's been instrumental in my development as a head coach.
Excellent. Number 3, UCLA and Olympic men's volleyball coach, John Speraw.
oh man, the brain of the game. And I think something that was really unique was the way he brought in almost like the side of physics to find a way to be more effective physically, and really getting the best out of people, regardless of where he's at and regardless of which athletes he's got on the team. And one of the stresses that he shared with me, I ran into him in the airport a year or two ago, and he said, it's really hard when I'm working with the national team compared to collegiately, because these national team guys are making money. And some of them don't like that they're not making enough. And I got to find a way to be successful and push these guys to improve each day. So he helped me understand that everyone's got different challenges. How are you finding a solution?
Very good. Very good. Number 4, Michael Jordan.
I think a big one that sticks out to me, besides him being the greatest of all time, probably in any sport, to be honest, I don't think at any point in the history of Earth will people not know who Michael Jordan is, right? I think people are going to forget a bunch of people, but no one will never not know who MJ is. And I think one thing that stuck out to me was he actually knew the specific number of game-winning shots that he was trusted with and missed.
Yes.
And I thought that was fantastic, because he was able to identify moments that he was trusted in where maybe he quote unquote failed, but he didn't define success in that way. I've missed this many shots, but I'm going to keep shooting and keep finding ways to improve and be ready for that next opportunity that comes up where I'm trusted with it again. He didn't allow the pressure to break him. He rose from those high pressure situations.
He found ways to use those pressures as the most motivating thing he could possibly have in his life. Pretty noteworthy. Absolutely. Number 5, your assistant coach and wife, Molly Taylor.
Man, she probably one of the hardest working people I've known, and that personally I've known. And she, at the same time, is one of the kindest people that I know. She pours into people just nonstop, just pouring out her heart, regardless of if it's going to be received or regardless if someone's going to snap back or be mad at her. Just the ability to work one's tail literally off, and at the same time continuously emotionally pour into people, is something that I've never seen at a level at which she does it.
Isn't that great? I can't wait for my grandkids. They're going to be so athletic. Holy cow. That's awesome. Number 6, ex-football great, Tim Tebow.
I think the big thing for him was, I don't think it was popular for him to be bringing in his faith as much as he did collegiately and maybe in the NFL as well. But I remember when I think it was for the national championship game, he always wore those black sun reflector stickers underneath his eyes on his cheeks. And he wrote, John 3:16 on there. And it was, I can't remember how many hits. It was, I think, over a couple million Google hits on that verse just because of what he put on his eyes. And standing up for something that's not necessarily popular is something that I really find admirable. And because a lot of the decisions that leaders have to make are not popular, and people will not like you for them. And standing up for what's right and what you believe in is something that is incredibly difficult. And I think it's the right thing to do. So that's something that sticks out to me.
Kind of goes back to not compromising your beliefs or principles, no matter how you're hit or the challenges around that. Yeah,
always being authentic to who you are.
One more, just a couple more people that have been noteworthy in your life and the ways you think about them. Head coach of Minnesota, Hugh McCutcheon.
Yeah, I think he and Marv are actually pretty close, and they kind of remind me of each other at times. When it comes to Hugh, I think something that I really, really love is that I asked him, I actually have it written down right here in some notes. I asked him, Hugh, why have you been successful? And the first thing he said was, Josh, coaching is what I do. It's not who I am. And he said, I'm a dad and I'm a husband. And, I do not let this job consume me. It's what I do. And I think that was something that was really important for me to hear, because it's so easy for me right now to be at 28 to be devoting 100% of my energy to this job. But I've got a wife, I got a couple great dogs, and I've got 4 cats. So you can call me a crazy cat lady.
You had cat socks on in one game.
Oh gosh, I know. I need to stop that. But he also talked about how your highs and lows are not validation of self-worth.
Oh, good.
So even if I'm winning, that does not define me, and that's not where my worth is. No. And if I'm losing, that doesn't mean my self-worth diminishes. So I thought that was pretty important for me to hear as well.
We'll be right back after word from our sponsor.
Behavioral and mental health professionals provide critical support to our communities in a time when our communities need it more than ever. But they need support too, to continue their education, to connect with colleagues, and to advance their career. And so we've launched Triad, the hub for behavioral and mental health professionals. At Triad, you'll find education, community, and career resources for both current and aspiring behavioral and mental health professionals, all curated specifically for you and all for free. Visit us at hellotriad.com/BHT to register for your free professional account. Again, that's hellotriad.com/BHT. Come join the community today.
Really good. Really good. Last one. This is just some free associations and how you think about these people. Josh Taylor.
I think I'm all right. And I think there's a lot to be improved on. And there's so many things that I want to get better at and devote myself to. But yeah, I think I'm doing okay in this position. But I think the biggest thing for me is, when I'm talking in third person here, but he does devote himself to his job and he works hard. And I think if he continues phrasing and defining success in the right way, I think he'll be fine.
It's really good. We're kind of winding down in our time today. We can maybe come back and talk at another time about ways that we can sustain excellence. The idea of once you got it up, keep it up, and how to do that. That mountaintop piece you were talking about. And I think it's anchored ultimately in what you're emphasizing us in today. It's in relationships. And maybe we can kind of flag that for a time down the road, because I believe that the platform that leaders have is a very unique one, allowing people to reach their fullest potential and their greatest selves, both athletically, both in their work, both as students, whatever they're going to be doing as persons, to have significant people alongside us. And I believe that's where we really grow our greatest, our greatest growth, our greatest potential is reached, and our adversities and our struggles are best worked through and happen within the context of relationships. So maybe we can flag that and bring you back one time and talk about how to sustain excellence in the long term. And I think there's some real key ways to do that.
Awesome.
Let me ask you, what makes you laugh in your position as a leader?
Oh man, I do not have it figured out. And oh man, I think that, and I think what makes me laugh is when we as a staff allow ourselves to relax for a moment. After every practice, we always come up in my office and we talk about it. And there's a period of time where I just let us talk freely and, laugh about things that went on in practice. Sometimes when Russ has to play in practice and messes up, I think that's one of my favorite times. But really I think the biggest thing is I look back, I keep all my notes from years and look back and I laugh at what I thought would be effective at that moment and how much I've grown since then. But there's a lot that makes me laugh, but definitely that I do not have it all figured out.
That's really good. If there's one question that you would encourage each of us listening in on today's show to ask ourselves as we think about leadership in our lives, what would be the one question you would encourage us to ask of ourselves around that?
I think one that I ask myself each day is, did you do everything in your power today to become the best that you could be?
Really good.
And it's going to be hard because we're very imperfect. And there are a lot of days where I say, no, I didn't. I was a little bit lazy today, or I thought maybe I'll put this off till tomorrow. But asking that, I'm finding that the more I ask that of myself, the better I get each day. Although those changes and those improvements might be small, those are the ones that are going to build upon one another and create something big.
I like that too. That brings to mind, this idea of, you always got to be perfect, because it's impossible. It's not real. I remember there was a story you told me once about Coach Dunphy, and he talked about, you may not always have the ability to give me 100%, but if you have a certain percentage, give me that story.
Yeah, we had a really long stretch of 2 5-set matches back to back, and we had to train the next week, and we were slugging a little bit. And he goes, guys, I understand we are tired, and I understand we do not have 100% right now, but I know we probably got maybe about 60% in your tank. I need 100% of that 60%. And basically what he's saying is, are you devoting yourself in that moment to giving everything that you've got to become the best you can be? Because honestly, life's hard. Sports are hard. And there's not going to be many times where you say, man, I feel great. I feel smart. I feel, ready to go. It's embracing the suck, and it's finding ways to give 100% of what you've got, regardless of how much you've got in your tank.
Really good. Really good. Hey, before we sign off, are there any resources you might suggest for those that want to talk or learn more about the leadership piece? Not so much even as a coach, but just kind of in life, maybe as a coach, but any resources?
Yeah. I think I've got a couple books that I actually have on my shelves here that I have more of my pen writing in than the actual ink from the writer. And one of them that can be applied to life more than coaching is Harvard Business Review, 10 must reads on leadership. This one is fantastic and really, really applicable to life more than sport here. Another one that I think is really unique because it brings in a lot of being effective in a group outside of sport and, at work. And it's Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And if you're going to be doing it with a group, I really encourage you to follow her structure of reading it. And it comes with a bunch of activities that you can do with those people that are reading it along with you. They're incredible. Good. But I can keep going. You want some more here?
Give me one more.
Okay. Wooden on Leadership by John Wooden. That's
blue book.
You got to get that one. Wooden on Leadership. Even if you're not into sports, Wooden on Leadership by John Wooden.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, I think there's some great opportunities for us to find ways to lead in our lives. And Josh, you're a young man with an old soul, pal, and you're doing some right things. Confucius once said, and I know Confucius, he's my go-to homie sometimes, but he said, a superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions. And I think you're doing some right things. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
And I really appreciate you being with us today. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Love talking about this stuff. So thank you for your time.
We'll have you back. We'll talk about ways to sustain leadership.
Sweet. Love it.
And for those listening in today, we want to thank you as always for being with us. And we look forward to having you join us next time on Behavioral Health Today.
We appreciate all the support from our community. And if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Tribe Network, all rights reserved.